Let's kick things off. So what have we got coming up today? Well, we're going to be introducing you to some awesome speakers. We have some wonderful experts joining us today. We're going to be running through some best practices for using Typeform and in your feedback processes. And then we're also going to talk about the future of feedback. So we are going to speak to some of the new features that we've been launching at Typeform. Today, I'm going to be joined by Mitchell. He's one of our customer success managers at Typeform. We also have Alistair joining us from the product team. And we're joined today by Brian, who is Senior Director of Growth Engineering at Tovola, who is one of our customers, and he has been using Typeform for a really super long time. So he's going to be sharing a lot of expert advice as well. So without further ado, we are going to get cracking, and I'm going to pass it over to Mitchell and Brian.
Excellent. Thank you, Grace. Hello, everyone. We're really excited to be here. Thrilled to be joined, as Grace mentioned, by Brian Krill from Tovola. Brian's here to share how collecting and leveraging feedback has been a game changer for his team in Typeform. As we all know, feedback is one of the most valuable tools for any business looking to grow and succeed. Whether you're gathering customer insights, employee input, or user experiences, feedback helps you make smarter decisions and improve across the board. So, Brian, thanks so much for being here today. To kick things off, could you tell us just a little bit about yourself, why Typeform, to help Tovola gather and use feedback for your team?
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me. My background is really in software. And when I joined Tovola, I was a lead front-end developer there. And then over the last 5+ years, really focused on growth and growth marketing and everything we needed to scale up the business. And we started using Typeform, like Grace said, when we launched, which was a little over 7 years ago. So basically, anytime we were looking to survey our customers, when you're just getting off the ground, it's the most valuable thing in the world just to be able to talk to real customers and get feedback. So we've been using it in all of our surveys for our, from acquisition through retention and in the customer experience, just to make sure that, we're really getting, a good sense of what our customers want to tell us. And then, where we're going to focus today is really on the post-purchase survey which is really, I would say, probably the most valuable survey we have at the company. We base a lot of our decisions on how we spend our marketing dollars there. We have other sources as well, but it's one of the best real-time places to get feedback. So yeah, excited to get into it.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely excited to share some of these best practices that we've been developing. I've also been really impressed, just as we've been in conversation about your entire customer journey and sort of mapping Typeform into that in a really seamless way. So we'll sort of break through that customer journey within Typeform and with a series of questions, just so you can share some of your tips and tricks along the way. First, starting capturing attention. So obviously that first impression matters, especially when you're looking to engage your audience for feedback. We have a few options for that in Typeform. One, obviously a welcome screen, which acts sort of as a cover of the book, pulling your respondents in and ensuring that they feel informed, comfortable before diving into answering some of these questions. But there's also obviously that option to integrate the survey seamlessly into your customer journey, which I know I don't want to bury the lead, but you've chatted about with me a little bit so far. So first questions here, I think just, do you use a welcome screen? How are you placing the survey in the customer journey? For instance, is it after a specific action, a specific event?
Right, yes. So this is the first question in our post-purchase survey. We do not use a welcome screen. We try to be really intentional in terms of when we're asking this question. So if you're a new customer, you've gone through the sign-up flow, you set your password. We have some onboarding modals just to tell you about what the customer experience looks like. And then you pick your first week of meals. And all those are really critical just in terms of a new customer onboarding, and your password is what gets you into the Android and iOS apps. So we want to make sure that that's set. You don't have to go through any kind of forgot password flow to reset it. And then when you pick your first week of meals, that's important that's to your preferences and your tastes, and that you're really happy with what you fill up your box with. And then once you've done everything that you need to do, in the customer onboarding, that's when we launched this question. And so that's where, yeah, we're trying to be intentional just in that. If you dropped off now, you'd still be all set as a customer, but it's a really good place to gather feedback. And yeah, the reason we use a welcome screen is try to just, you're already pretty heavily involved in a lot of these interactions. And so it's a pretty short survey overall, in that it takes about 2 minutes to fill out. But yeah, just being able to get right into it and have this first question, which is, when did you hear about Tovola, which is important for us to understand the consideration journey and, how long it actually took you to make a decision. But yeah, we just kind of jump straight into it and want to get people to answer that first question.
Awesome. Yeah, I also, you mentioned this is a pretty short survey to complete. For our viewers, whether you're experienced with Typeform, new to it, don't forget the power of this time to complete piece. We do have a setting and a feature available which estimates the time it will take to complete the form and shows that right on the welcome screen. So it can help respondents feel informed about the commitment they're making to completing the questions coming up. There's also a progress bar at the top, which you can see in sort of a light orange in this screenshot as you complete the survey. Love it. Very helpful to understand. Again, I want to just hit home that point about the seamless sort of transition through your customer's journey from onboarding into the first question. And so I think the next piece here, we've sort of spoken to this a little bit so far, but looking at what impact we're aiming to make with branding specifically in Typeform. So customizing your surveys with branded elements can, of course, drive engagement, convey professionalism, and make respondents feel trusting and more comfortable. Jumping into your use case a little bit, how do you think that branding plays into your surveys? Do you feel it enhances the user experience? I know something we talked a little bit about is just that it feels a part of the user's experience up until this point. So can you share a little bit about your experience with that?
Yeah, and for us, especially when we were very early stage, we didn't think a lot about this in terms of what how we actually, the look and feel of the survey, like what that looked like. And over time, that's when we actually built out the brand kit. So yeah, very early days, we just used the defaults. And then over time, we built out the brand kits, and we use, like I said, Typeform for so many different places to gather feedback. We use it internally with our team. We use it for pilots that we run, and then we use it in kind of a steady state for customers. And so as we started to, this lives in a lot of different places in our customer experience, that first post-purchase survey question happens on web after you've bought. And so that's embedded on web. We have it in the apps. And having that brand kit that has our logo, has the our color and themes, and just it looks like us. That's something that, especially obviously on the customer side, we wanted to make sure that we're at least consistent in terms of when it shows up, you don't feel like you've gone somewhere else. And it's been definitely more of a focus later stage than very early days, but I think it's helpful.
Awesome. Yeah, sure thing. And I think that there's parts of this that are just about simplicity and keeping it seamless and consistent with the branding that you mentioned. I do want to just call out some of the brand kit features. You mentioned some of them. You can, of course, include logos, colors, fonts, any themes that are important to your brand. With some of our enterprise agreements, of course, you can create unlimited brand kits and create experiences for different brands that you might represent. A lot of different use cases and options for brand kits. I also do want to just quickly plug something that a lot of the customers I've been working with have been really excited about as of recent. In a recent release, we have released custom fonts where you're able to upload specific fonts to really, again, keep that seamless, consistent experience with branding in Typeform. Excellent. So I think what I'd like to do next is just jump in. I lost my mouse here. Found it. To crafting questions. Of course, clear, concise, well thought out questions drive better responses, while vague or leading questions can confuse, maybe even frustrate respondents. So the type of questions we ask and their order also matter as they impact the quality and type of data that you're collecting. So I think as a starting point here, we've already discussed some of these thoughts, I think, in a bit of detail, but I'm curious to hear more from you around how you're approaching wording with your survey questions. Do you keep them open-ended? Do you try to keep them more structured? Do you randomize options? A lot of sort of things to unpack here.
Yeah, so in this first question, which is, yeah, when did you first hear about us? That, and then the follow-up of where did you hear about us? Those are multiple choice. They are by far the most important questions that we're asking in the survey. Like I said, we base marketing decisions off of what people are saying in terms of, where they heard about us. And then we keep this fairly up to date as we do channel testing and try to make sure that it's accounted for in terms of where our marketing dollars are the most effective. And those first two questions are multiple choice. We do randomize the options on really any multiple choice question, just to make sure, generally you'll see the first question get a lot of engagement just because it's at the top. If that's consistent, like sometimes that can skew the results. So just keep that as a best practice to always randomize the responses. And try to make it like an easy gimme, just in terms of here's this first question. It should resonate with you pretty quickly in terms of what you recognize if you saw us on TV or on Facebook or Instagram or from a direct mailer. And this is another thing that we know is, if you think about your own consumer journeys when you buy new products, you don't always remember exactly what that looked like. So we take it with a little bit of grain of salt. We do some, triangulation in terms of how we, fill in the gaps on measurement in general. But it is a really good, consistent way to get the engagement and to learn over time, like, what channels are driving sales. But that is, those first two questions, are really straightforward. They're really valuable. We want to make sure that those get answered. And then as we go on, the questions that aren't as important, but are, more secondary in terms of what we're trying to learn, those are all optional. And so you can, if you just answer those first two questions and then you start to skip forward and just want to submit, that's great. That's valuable to us. And so we just want to make sure that we're considerate of the user's time. And we're really starting with what's most valuable.
Awesome. Yeah, I want to highlight 2 points. The first, obviously, is just we're focused on multiple choice questions here. I know that your form has different types of questions, but we can offer at Typeform many different things like NPS rating, opinion scale matrix, multiple choice, more open-ended questions, a lot of different options to gather feedback. But what I'm really most struck by, Brian, I think with your work at Tovola and these 6 or 7 years of using Typeform, is it's about creating effective questions. And that is the key to really gathering actionable insights. And I think that there's a lot of finessing that happens as you work through these surveys, and really appreciate your insights here as well. Moving on to sort of the end of the survey, the work's not quite complete yet, but how can we sort of conclude our surveys in a way where we're focusing, making sure that that end of the survey is just as important as the start. It's also an opportunity potentially to gather additional feedback or offer further engagement for the customer once they've completed the feedback survey. So first questions here, I think, are just how do you typically conclude your survey? Do you include a final message or a call to action? Do you include an optional maybe question at the end, such as additional comments for feedback, things to that effect?
Yeah, you know what? This is probably my favorite question in the survey for the post-purchase in terms of how we end it, in that we are really, really focusing in on the qualitative side. The question is just, why did you buy? And we say, we read every response and then we want to hear your story. And you get such a different variety of answers. Some people will just put in a word to submit the form, but a lot of people do take the time to craft paragraphs and really tell us, about, why they are looking for the convenience, how it has really their expectations just in terms of what they want to get out of it and how they heard about us, like actually tying together those different dots and connecting them and giving us, a really detailed response is just something it's hard to do in a consistent way. And this is what we found to be really the most effective in terms of getting consistent feedback. And I do think that point on, we explicitly tell new customers that we read every response, and we have to pay that off. in terms of, if someone is telling us something that is expecting a reply. We have a pretty wide range of teammates that have their eyes on the survey and are monitoring feedback. And there are a lot of times where we do need to reach out and answer a question or acknowledge some feedback. So yeah, that last question is definitely optional. So it's, not everyone is going to take the time to write several paragraphs, but when they do, it's gold.
Absolutely. I love you talking about doing your part in that. If you're going to ask for it and say that we're going to, receive it, review it, and potentially do something about it is really important. 2 quick points I wanted to bring up here. I actually pretty recently became Brian and Tovola's CSM, and so we've been engaged in discussion about how we can further optimize the forums. And so one of our more recent releases is a feature called Partial Submit. Again, fairly new feature where you can basically collect partial responses for the most important questions in your form. So responses to questions answered before that added partial submit point would be collected, and you'd be able to see the corresponding data in your results panel. So another option that if we're having drop-off issues, maybe they don't quite get to the last question, but we know those first 2 questions are most important, still gathering that feedback. I also wanted to just bring up one other thought that in some use cases for collecting feedback, having some sort of follow-up is really important. There is a follow-up feature in Typeform, which helps to maintain the conversation after the survey is completed, sending a thank you note or even a follow-up email to respondents or potentially to someone on your team. That brings us pretty nicely, I think, into our next section, which is really just about analyzing feedback. This is our last section as we sort of review some of what Tovola is doing. Obviously, once the data is collected, the real work begins, analyzing the results. Effective analysis can help you identify trends, address pain points, and uncover actionable insights. So my questions here, I think, for you, Brian, first, how do you typically analyze the feedback you receive from surveys? Are you using any tools or integrations like Slack to help manage that, sort of last response? And anything else that comes to mind for you in terms of that initial actioning of the data you receive?
Yeah, we keep an eye on this, especially on the drop-off side for how many questions that we're asking. Want to make sure that there aren't any glaring holes of where people are leaving. And even that partial submit feature is something that I personally learned about during preparation for this session, and we'll be using that going forward. But overall, because this survey we've been asking this question really since we launched, it feels pretty heavily optimized, and that when, if there's anything close to a 10% drop off on a single question, that's something that we'll either want to reword or take it out and make sure that we're really, focusing on what we need to learn, and keeping it as lean as possible. And then when people actually fill out the survey, this is something that's really evolved over time for us. One thing that we have been doing since very early days is piping all of the responses into Slack, and we have like I said, a big part of the team just seeing that as on a drip basis throughout the day. It's helpful, not just to catch things that are questions or comments or things that we want to respond to, but it really enforces a lot of what resonated with the consumer as they were making a decision and why they signed up. And so having that as a steady stream in Slack as a channel that sometimes maybe you mute it and you batch read it, or sometimes you just have it on and just check it throughout the day. But having that visibility has been really important. And then but it's evolved in the sense of that early days we would just kind of export the survey responses into CSVs and create some graphs from there. Now we actually do pipe it into our BI tools and do some graphs, and are able to tie it into other elements and attributes for the customer experience. And it's a good way to really segment out our customers by channel and the consideration period and everything else that we ask in there. And then this is also pretty recent for us, but just in terms of reading through and finding common themes. This, we started using ChatGPT, or some people on the team use Claude AI. We'll just do those kind of raw data exports and make sure there's no personal information in what we share with those AI tools, but we'll kind of pipe it in and start to just ask some really basic questions. And it's helpful to have, when you have the tens of thousands, or in this case, over 100,000 responses, being able to pick out some of those themes and just ask some just general questions has been helpful. We're pretty early stages in terms of using it across the team, but it has become more of a consistent practice, and it's just a really quick way to maybe catch themes that, you know, to see the forest between the trees. It's nice to be able to have that kind of high level view when you just kind of go back and forth with the tool.
Awesome. Brian, there's two things as we conclude that I want to sort of bring up here. The first is, like, I don't think that I necessarily like get teary-eyed when I think about forms very much, but just when you were starting to talk about the Slack integration and seeing that those points of feedback coming through, like, for me, I know as someone who's worked in SaaS for a while, it's so important to have those reminders of enforcing what we're doing. And if it's working, if it's not working, I think it's a really good, even just for company culture. That's a really excellent point. The second thing that I think will bring us nicely into the next section was how you mentioned sort of starting to use AI. Definitely something we're thinking about at Typeform as well, in different capacities and different ways. And before we move on to our next speaker in this workshop, I just want to take a moment to express our gratitude to Brian for sharing some of the best practices Tovola is using to collect feedback in Typeform. We've had a great look at the features that are currently making an impact at Tovola. Now it feels like the perfect time to shift gears and talk about some of the exciting future of Typeform pieces as well. So thank you again, Brian. Let's dive into some of the new features our team is working on. Ali, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Mitchell and Brian, for an insightful deep dive into the best practices for creating a successful feedback survey. Hello, everyone. My name is Alistair. I'm a product manager here at Typeform. Today, I'm excited to introduce 3 innovations we've launched this year that will transform how you collect and analyze feedback. Together with the tried and true methods that we've highlighted just now, these innovations offer a glimpse into the future of feedback collection and analysis, one that's more AI first, conversational, and multimodal. So let's get started. At Typeform, we've always believed that the best feedback comes from conversations, and that's why video questions and answers are so impactful, because together they bring feedback to life. Firstly, take a moment to scan this QR code on the screen or open the link that we've just shared in the chat. As you'll see, video questions allow you to record yourself asking your audience a question. It's no longer just static text on a screen. It's you, a real person, speaking directly to your respondents. This personal face-to-face approach brings a human touch to your feedback forms, making the experience feel more like a real-life conversation. And this human connection creates more engagement and ultimately encourages more valuable and insightful feedback. Now for some pro tips for creating the best video questions. First and foremost, keep the video question bite-sized. Aim for under 30 seconds to keep your audience engaged, and don't be afraid to do a few practice runs. Getting the right tone and speed takes a little bit of trial and error. Secondly, try this coffee chat setup. Position yourself naturally at eye level, find a quiet spot with natural lighting, and use your regular conversational voice. Lastly, try this question first formula. Always start with your question and then layer in some additional context to set them up for a good response. For example, what are your thoughts on this best practices workshop? We'd be curious to get your take on the value it provides our customers. Now, why not flip the camera and give your respondents the option to share their feedback with video? When people respond with video, they share much more than just words. You get to see their emotions and their body language and tone. It's just like having a face-to-face conversation where you pick up on all those important unsaid details that text-based feedback just can't capture. And with video answers, you get the best of both worlds now. You get the full recording of their feedback that you can use for quotes, presentations, deeper analysis, but you also get an AI-powered transcription that can easily be shared and analyzed for insights. So now for some pro tips for getting more video responses from your audience. The number one way to do this is to lead by example. Try showing up on camera yourself first with a video question. Keep it casual and wear something relaxed. When people see you being authentic on video, they're much more likely to reciprocate that in their own recordings. And what's the secret to getting people comfortable? Try starting with a low pressure icebreaker question, something fun like, if you could travel anywhere, where would you go? Or what's your favorite snack? This really helps break down those initial barriers and gets people warmed up before diving into more substantial questions. And finally, always explain who will see the video and why you need it, whether it's for internal use or a testimonial. Being transparent really builds trust. And here's a pro tip: remind people that they can practice and re-record as many times as they need. This simple reassurance can really help with response rates. So now that we've explored the power of video, let's move on to our next innovation. So building on this idea of more engaging conversational feedback, I'm excited to share our first step towards bringing dynamic, conversational AI-driven experiences into the heart of Typeform. This is a feature called Clarify with AI. So we've all been here before. You ask for feedback and you get a vague answer. Open-ended questions often only capture surface-level feedback. This leaves valuable insights on the table that could otherwise guide smarter decisions. And now let's think about this from the perspective of your respondents. Providing a truly comprehensive and thoughtful answer on the first try can be pretty difficult. So more often than not, we just give our initial thoughts and then we move on. So this is where Clarify with AI comes in. It combines the structure and predictability of Typeform with the flexibility and adaptability of conversational AI. So if you want to give it a try, you know the drill. Scan the QR code on the screen or open the link in the chat, and I'll explain how it works. So your respondent answers the main open-ended question for feedback. For example, tell us what you think about Typeforum. Clarify with AI, trained to adapt the conversation based on the response and explore valuable tangents, will send up to 2 highly personalized clarification questions. For example, which aspects did you find most appealing, or how will this workshop benefit your feedback collection? And finally, together with the transcript, it will generate a clear summary of the conversation, which you can use to analyze feedback further. So you might be wondering how to get started. We've got some pro tips for using Clarify with AI. Firstly, we recommend positioning it near the end of your form. Consider adding a partial submit point before using Clarify with AI, just to make sure you collect critical information first, and then leaving that conversational feedback collection experience to the end. By positioning it at the end of your feedback form, the AI is able to leverage more context from the welcome screen and previous questions. With this additional context, the AI can generate even more personalized and relevant clarification questions, so it can pick up on the tone of voice and style of your brand without any additional configuration or training needed. And lastly, I'd encourage you to consider using Clarify with AI as an alternative to long text blocks for open-ended feedback questions. By combining it with a rating or a closed-ended question, you can add much more depth and context to the feedback you're collecting. So far, we've focused on new and exciting ways to capture feedback, but now it's time to talk about what we're going to do with all this valuable feedback data that we've just collected. So this is a challenge faced by many. You invest a lot of time and effort into gathering rich, insightful feedback from your customers. But here comes the hard part. How do you analyze all those responses to understand what's top of mind for your customers, or what questions they have or what things they're struggling with? We often just end up reading responses one by one, or doing basic keyword searches, or putting it into ChatGPT like Brian mentioned. And if we have video responses, we end up watching hours of video trying to spot patterns to identify topics that our customers care about. This is a super time-consuming, costly, and inefficient process. So this is where Smart Insights comes to the rescue. Leveraging the power of generative AI, Smart Insights will analyze your open-ended response data, automatically identifying common topics mentioned by your customers. We know that the more specific the feedback you have, the more specific and personalized follow-up actions you can take. So that's why for each topic, you'll also find relevant subtopics alongside highlighted customer quotes. So this AI-powered qualitative analysis provides instant, deep insights into your customers' feedback, so you don't have to start from scratch, or you don't have to read responses one by one. But perhaps you're still struggling to find the time and resources for in-depth feedback analysis. Well, now all you need to do is ask AI. So simply head over to Smart Insights, and you can ask any question about your response data in your own natural language. No more spreadsheets, pivot tables, complex data tools needed. Ask AI will understand your query and deliver the insights you need. The result, actionable feedback in a matter of seconds. So, to sum up, we believe the future of feedback is actually here. More engaging, multimodal experiences, richer conversational feedback, and faster, deeper feedback analysis. So these three powerful innovations are available on all growth plans, whilst Clarify with AI and Smart Insights are also included in core enterprise plans. So it's time to transform your customer feedback into business-changing decisions, not in the distant future, but today. Thank you for your time, and back to you, Grace.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ali, and a big thanks to Mitchell and Brian as well. I'm bringing everyone back up on stage here now because we are going to do a little bit of Q&A. We haven't got loads of time, but we definitely will try and answer a couple. So if you do have any questions, please drop them in the Q&A section. And anything we don't answer live, we will follow up with and answer offline. If you haven't already visited the Typeform community, I would recommend popping over there because we have a dedicated post for this session where we'll follow up with any unanswered questions. And also you can just carry on talking about it and ask us more questions, because you might go away and then 3 o'clock in the morning, wake up and think, oh my gosh, I forgot to ask Ali about something about Clarify with AI. So let's have a quick look at the Q&A. Actually, Brian, there is one that has come in for you. So they were asking, so someone's asking, for the customers that have onboarded, how does Tovola send the survey to their customers? Is it sent via email or is it embedded somewhere? Would you be able to speak to that?
Yeah, so it is embedded on web, and we really only acquire customers through our website. There are other like third-party channels like Amazon, but for anyone that's like direct to consumer, the only way to really sign up for the meal plan is through web. So we do ask it in context on web. We don't have any follow-ups on email. We actually thought about that and decided actually could add some noise in terms of like when you're answering the question if we followed up, you know, a week or two later over email. So we stick to an embed on web.
Cool. There's always room for improvement, right? So next up, someone's asking about the features that we've just seen and wanting to know whether they're live already. When can they start using them? Ali, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, so everything we've shown today is live. They're all currently available in growth plans, but also Smart Insights and Clarify with AI on core enterprise plans.
Perfect. Thank you. We did have a question about Clarify with AI that came up in the chat, and I want to make sure we don't miss it. If each participant is getting slightly different questions via Clarify with AI, how will that affect the analysis? Ali, do you have any sort of thoughts on that you could kind of speak to?
Yeah, so it's currently not integrated with the topic analysis just yet, but essentially it's able to turn that transcript into a summary. And when that is integrated, it will work seamlessly with topic analysis. So it'll be able to extract the key topics and subtopics such that it won't really affect the analysis. So if anything, you're going to get more.
Perfect. Cool. Hopefully that's good news for everyone out there that is thinking about using the feature. I've been testing it out already and I'm a big fan. Brian, another question that's come through for you. As an existing customer and power user, how are you feeling about the new functionalities that Typeform is rolling out?
Yeah, you know, I shared with the Typeform team, it looks great. I think my first question after I saw the demo was, is it enabled on our account? Which I'm sure will be a very common question. And just having it baked into the tool versus having to go to another place and do some of that analysis, like it's so powerful. So yeah, I'm as excited as everyone else about the tool.
Awesome. Brilliant. Thank you. We have a question here, which I'm not sure whether we might have to double check the answer to. It might be one for one of our video experts that's in the chat. But Sophie's wondering if they're collecting and storing customers' video responses in Typeform. Do we need to do anything to ensure compliability with GDPR? Ali, I don't know if you know about that, or whether maybe we could ask one of our product managers that are in the chat to answer that one, maybe.
I think Mal will have the answer to this. I think I'll get back to you in the chat.
Perfect. Mal, feel free to drop your answer in there. While we're doing that, I do have another quick poll that I want to share with everybody. We've just got a couple more minutes left before we will jump into the next session. So let's have a quick poll and see what everyone's excited about. So in terms of the new features that Ali shared today, which of these are you most interested in trying? We'd love to hear your feedback on that. So drop your answers in really quickly, and then we will share the results just before we end. We've got more sessions to come as well. If you're sticking around today, we have our awesome partner roundtable coming up next with some of our integration partners. Zapier, Webflow, and Klaviyo will be joining us for a discussion. And then we'll be finishing off today's event with our Typeform awards as well. So if you want to come and have some fun and see who's crowned the winners of our first awards this year, please join us for that as well. I'm going to end the poll real quickly, and let's have a look. What does everyone interested in? Oh, Smart Insights is leading the way, but it's a pretty close race. Clarify with AI coming in second, and then video questions and answers as well. Thank you for humoring me there and joining in with that. I really do appreciate it. So as I said, we've got still more to come. I'm going to come bring the slides back up. So as a quick reminder to you all, if you haven't already joined the Typeform community, please feel free to. We're going to drop the link in the chat here to join the community's discussion. So if you want to continue talking to us around best practices for collecting and analyzing feedback, feel free to pop over there and ask more questions. We've also been recording the sessions, and we will upload those there as well, so you can watch back anytime. We've also got a very cool use case guide that talks about some of these best practices, which you're welcome to have a read through when you have time. And a little plug for our next event. We have Tune Up Your Typeform coming back to us, the winter edition. So if you would like some of our experts to have a look at your form, whether you're a seasoned expert or not, this may be for you. We're going to have a team of experts that are going to help to tune up some forms live. So you can submit your form to be tuned, or just come and watch. And we'll drop the link in the chat for that as well, so that you can sign up for that one. That's coming up in December, and we'd love to see you all there. For now, though, as I said, coming up next, we do have the roundtable, and then we have the Typeform Awards. I want to say a massive thank you to Brian, Mitchell, and Ali for joining me today and giving an absolutely outstanding session. It's been brilliant. Any questions that we didn't get to today, then we will definitely follow up with offline. So make sure you head over to that community post that we shared, so that you can see all the answers to the questions come through. And for now, that's it. You've got about 5 minutes until the next session starts. So you've got time to go off and get yourself another drink and breathe a sigh of relief, or whatever it is that you want to do before joining the next one. Thanks so much, everyone, again, and we'll see you soon. Thanks.